Wait a second. Something's not right about that phone call. So after Mr. Gavin ate dinner with you, he left the Box Bowl Club? Most certainly. And how did he know? When did he see this bone china plate? Oh, that's right. Yes, that was when I began to see my good friend in a different light. Troubled, I returned to the crime scene. When I spotted Mr. Smith's head again, I realized exactly what was wrong. Well, Mr. Gavin, this case has been set. Perhaps you would like to explain this to the court? Exactly how did you come by your privileged knowledge of the victim's head? Sir, this is your reason. The reason why you put the victim's hat back on. Your point, Mr. Gavin? It's come down to this, has it, Phoenix Wright? Order? I will have order, Mr. Payne. Yes, Your Honor. I believe this court has been left with no other choice. Are you prepared to hear defense attorney Gavin's testimony? As the prosecutor, I... Very well. We'll break for 10 minutes. After which Mr. Gavin will take the stand for a cross-examination. Are we clear on that? Crystal clear, Your Honor. Very well. This will be the final recess of the day. Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this? May I? Huh? What? Hello, sir. Please, pick a card. What's all this about? Is this one okay? Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You need a trump card to make it. A trump card? The card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely, and the game is yours. That's all. An ace? Where do I remember that card from? Mr. Smith's hand had 3 aces. Mr. White's 2. It is 5 aces in all. It is true. I have seen it. The 5th ace. There was cheating. I swear to you. The missing 5th ace. Wait. There's blots of red. Is this blood? You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it. This bloodstained card is my trump card for finding the truth? I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what all this meant. That girl, I'd seen her recently, but where? That's when I made the connection. Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand? Now then, if you would, Mr. Payne. Yes, Your Honor. Well, Mr. The witness state his name and occupation. Is this false necessarily, Your Honor? Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. Fine, I'll play along. First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secrets beneath the victim's hat? Secret, I'm guessing means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Anna seems to have an irreverent interest in it.
Objection!
I wouldn't call it irreverent, Mr. Gavin. Mr. White? What do you think you're doing, right? Wow, things will look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taking it off except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit? Oh? When Mr. White returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. White picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to have been there in the hideout at the time of the crime. In other words, I must be the real killer, is what you're trying to say? Not bad, Apollo. Mr. Gavin? I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the cut. What? Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Lloyd. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation I see little reason to hide anything. Very well. Allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events of that fateful night? The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in that photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and right, holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the car came from right. So, you witnessed the murder? For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, I remind you that you are on Mr. White's defense team. Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand after all. So you are Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them that you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. White? You had to say that. Because that was the only probable window of opportunity. Right, Apollo? Oh. Mr. White, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared? Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead as he appeared in the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and right, holding a bottle in his hand.
Hold it!
Those are the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw, at least. So we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police? 2 reasons. First, I didn't actually notice the moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend.
Objection! There
must have been someone else there at that moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one. Not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. White said. I guess this mysterious fourth person who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap the cards in the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary? How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the fifth ace. The fifth ace? Right. Well, Mr. Justice, the question of why the killer would swap out a card had been raised. Can you point to a reason? It's now or never. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out. Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the fifth ace?
Take that!
My reason is this? Is that an ace? Why, it's got blood on it. Right next to the spade. What? This is insane. Why wasn't I told about this? Why? Could this be the missing fifth ace? Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy gore. Oh, that card? It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Bowl Club the night after the moto had a card. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock and trade after all.
Objection!
No! Impossible! Unacceptable! The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason? The reason for the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Could a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood.
Objection!
Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right. Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. No, not a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss the final points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You want to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see.
Objection!
This is conjecture. Baseless.
Objection!
Oh, I show you, it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. In your head. The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there was one decisive problem with the scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witness, or the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card?
Take that!
Well, isn't the victim's position that's the problem? I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Ah! Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards. Why, that's right. So, what does this mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. The chair is facing the other way? It would have to be. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table. When Mr. White returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know now the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on the diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, or the second witnesses? Whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, would it be hard for the killer to be hit from the front? Sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it would be quite hard, yes. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. What? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry. Let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing towards the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front?
Take that!
The killer had to be standing, well, here! You get points for flair, but that's all about all you get. I thought I was on to something there too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Ha! It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at that very moment of the crime... Wait, I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there! What's this now? I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard at the hideout immediately. Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to remove the cupboard. Your Honor, what? There's one more thing you're meant to look for. Please give this to the bailiff. Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. White. I do my best. But let's forge the head here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here. Which means, Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Thank you. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the moment of the murder, it has to have been shown here. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my. What's this? What is it now? Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh, dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion. Now then, Mr. Justice, please point out to the new contradiction indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in the diagram contradicts what we know about the crime?
Take that!
About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would have completely covered up the window to the stairs. Ah! That's right. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What did you say? Oh, is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool? Don't expect me to play along with your little game, right? It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court exactly where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor! Order! This is a court of law and I will have order! We just now received word from our investigative team at the Boss Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor. Oh, and what did they find? Well, Your Honor, it turns out there was a secret passage behind it! What? Ah, yes. I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I remember him saying something about that now that he mentions it. Secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal going on. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room had a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The Underwood bosses could get away from the cops. Enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it. That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked and the victim's hat was only off his head for the few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. White's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin? Come on, say something. Now I ask what really happened that night. Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting just for the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it. Ah!
What? Why did you do that? Wait here, I'll get help. Mr. Olga O'Willie was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. This time was soon to come. Mr. White went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shoddy Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the curtain sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look, and after the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized the need to destroy the evidence. A single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him, he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the cards on the floor. And the fact that they were all red. Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry I had seen this day come, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Gavin? Mr. Payne? Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, defendant, he is hereby cleared of our suspicion. Ah! Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin. But I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest immediately.
Objection!
No need to apologize. I'd rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in with such a low-grade parlor trick. Excuse me? The defendant is cleared of our suspicion. This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And not just anyone else, but me, his own defense attorney. Illegal evidence?
Objection!
Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin, is there any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course. This bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. White was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne? Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottle were upside down. I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The court, in this case, demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down. That is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor. See how the fish swims to the last well, Apollo? Yes! Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle stuff. But I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that. Yeah. Just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down other than... Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Take another look at the court records. I believe you'll find a simple answer there, in plain sight. How about you just say the answer in plain words? It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions indeed. Well, Mr. Justice. Mr. Gavin said that the court in this case demanded an explanation. Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done. Care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on this bottle are upside down?
Take that!
It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honor. Place that bottle on the floor next to your chair. Excuse me, on the floor? Yes, now, reach down and pick it up. Without getting out of your chair. Ah! See? You naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers. Upside down! Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. White, sat there here, playing piano. Bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottle upside down several times. Wow, I can't believe it was that simple. Recall our dinner that evening, Kristoff. I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed. But then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. And you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. White's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon. Order, order, order. What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin? Fascinating. So this is the legendary attorney's frame tactics of misdirection. What? You claim that I switched the bottle? Where is your proof? Proof? Well, that's... as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty.
Objection!
I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honor, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation? Ah, yes. I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Boss Bowl Club. And here, one of the bottles in question. What? Are you going to test that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if any were on that but his. Mr. Gavin probably wouldn't make such a novice mistake, true. That bottle wouldn't bear a trace of anything. Say, Apollo. Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humor me. Mr. White, that bottle will solve this case once and for all. What? That's some bottle! There's something inside the bottle. What's this? Thank God. It can't be. Recall that unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment? Miss Olga O'Reilly? Yes, a little swindling the vocator. That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to. And White lost the last hand, just like he was supposed to. Then Smith shot him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? The one you mentioned in this piece of testimony? I happened to put my head in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the 5 of hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card for the game. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. Five of hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped, and the only one who could have done that was the fourth person in the club that night. You, Mr. Kristoff Gavin.
That is all. Is this your idea of revenge? Phoenix Light? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your Tony's bed 7 years ago? My past is like my logic. Straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little tile, right? This is insane. What about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone? I believe this time we finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christoph Gavin? He's admitted to everything. We'll prosecute it, stressing his arrest now. I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he? None that we know of. Mr. White, have you anything to add? I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter. This victim, Mr. Shoddy Smith. His occupation was just as traveler. An odd profession to be sure, and that's all we know about him. I'll aim to follow-up investigation, Your Honor. Good. Mr. White. Yes? 7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch. Christoph Gavin was a man with much significance of me, both as a friend and a lawyer. Extremely talented, to be sure. I needed 2 things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated. This courtroom. The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, an defense attorney. You, Apollo. Me? This is a dark time for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought on by our very own initial trial system. We have to set it right. Mr. White? Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. This seems like a good time to announce a verdict. This court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix White, not guilty. Court is adjourned. Thanks, Apollo. You came through, just like I thought you would. But I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who cornered the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability. Ability? Yes, sensitivity I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder if he means... I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim? Is this true? Of course it's true! What's this weird vibe I'm getting? What was that, Mr. White? You have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer? Right. Today was full of questions without answers. Must know about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait, you don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me, I met the girl whose picture's in your locket. Your daughter, right? That's right. She's my daughter. You know, you were right about this locket. Huh? I took this off his neck the night he died. It looks like our dear Western scam artist saw me. So the truth is, this locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury! You testified! You said that locket was yours! I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. It's the truth. Wait, but then, why? I was the victim of a locket with a picture of your daughter inside of it. Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo. Yes? How about coming to work for me? Huh? You mean at the White & Co. Law Offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. I can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, didn't you... You're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man. Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion and he left the law for good. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I'll bet this was the forged evidence.
Take that!
You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. White. Yes, that couldn't have been found at the crime scene. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left, leaving the one card in its place. Luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud! A fraud? How can you be so soft? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the killer who took the wheel card from the crime scene. The wheel killer! Our verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then, you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney. Who's calling himself an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. The rumor is true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? Ah! I punched him! It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn the next page. My office's address. Drop in if you like. Mr. White? Oh, about your uppercut. Try yelling, "Take that," next time. I find it packs a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. And with that, Mr. White walked out the door. That's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved. And at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'll find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law. And this is how my story begins.